because each of us might be blown away. Everybody's acting like we can do anything, man.
Casualties of War takes viewers deep into one of the darkest and most disturbing stories ever shown in a Vietnam War movie. Unlike many war films that focus only on battlefield action and heroism, this movie explores the psychological damage war can inflict on soldiers and the terrible choices people can make when morality disappears in the chaos of combat. Directed by Brian De Palma, the film became known for its intense emotional storytelling, brutal realism, and uncomfortable themes that still shock audiences decades later. Even today, many viewers consider it one of the most underrated war dramas ever made because of how honestly it portrays guilt, fear, violence, and a loss of humanity during wartime. The story is inspired by real events that reportedly happened during the Vietnam War in 1966, making the movie even more disturbing because the tragedy shown on screen is based on an actual crime connected to soldiers during the conflict. Instead of glorifying war, the film focuses on the moral collapse inside a small military squad and the emotional struggle of one soldier who realizes something terrible is happening around him. That decision alone separated the movie from many traditional war films of the 1980s because it wasn't interested in showing victory or patriotic moments. It wanted audiences to confront the horrors of war and the way extreme situations can destroy the line between right and wrong. The movie stars Michael J. Fox in one of the darkest roles of his career. Most audiences at the time knew him from lighter and more comedic performances, so seeing him in such a serious and emotionally painful war drama surprised many people. He plays Private Max Erickson, a young soldier who becomes trapped between loyalty to his squad and his own conscience. Opposite him is Sean Penn, whose intense performance as Sergeant Tony Meserve became one of the most talked about parts of the film. Penn portrayed Meserve with terrifying aggression and emotional ends. Instability, turning the character into a symbol of how power and violence can corrupt people during war. Supporting performances from John C. Reilly, John Leguizamo, Don Harvey, and Ving Rhames added even more realism to the movie. Many viewers later looked back at the cast and realized how many talented actors appeared in the film before some of them became major Hollywood stars. The performances feel raw, uncomfortable, and frighteningly believable, which is one reason the movie remains emotionally difficult to watch even today. The plot begins during the Vietnam War as a squad of American soldiers moves through dangerous jungle territory filled with fear, uncertainty, and constant violence. Early in the film, Erickson's life is saved by Meserve during a brutal combat situation, creating a sense of loyalty and obligation between them. But that relationship quickly changes when Meserve leads the squad toward a horrifying decision that Erickson cannot morally accept. As the tension grows, the movie becomes less about military survival and more about the psychological war happening inside the minds of the soldiers themselves. One of the reasons the movie became so controversial is because it refused to soften the cruelty of the events being portrayed. The film shows how peer pressure, fear, power, and emotional numbness can slowly push ordinary people toward horrific actions. Erickson becomes isolated from the rest of the squad because he refuses to participate in the crime being committed. That isolation creates some of the movie's most intense moments because he is forced to choose between personal safety and standing against his own comrades in the middle of a war zone. Visually, the film uses the jungles and mountains of Vietnam to create a feeling of constant danger and emotional suffocation. The environment itself almost feels like another character in the story. Rain, darkness, smoke, and silence are used throughout the movie to increase tension and hopelessness. Stephen H. Burham handled the cinematography, and many critics praise how the film balanced large-scale war scenes with deeply personal emotional moments. The camera often focuses tightly on the faces of the soldiers, forcing viewers to experience their fear, guilt, and emotional breakdowns up close. Another major strength of the movie is its haunting soundtrack created by Ennio Morricone. Instead of loud, heroic music, the score feels tragic and emotional, reminding viewers that the story is about suffering and moral destruction rather than triumph. The music becomes especially powerful during the film's most heartbreaking scenes, adding emotional weight without overwhelming the performances. Many fans still consider Morricone's work on the film one of the most underrated soundtracks in his legendary career. When the movie released in 1989, reactions were mixed but extremely passionate. Some critics praised it as one of the most powerful anti-war films ever made, while others felt the subject matter was too disturbing for mainstream audiences. Even though the film received strong reviews from many critics, it struggled commercially at the box office and did not become a massive financial success. Some people believe this happened because audiences at the time were more interested in traditional action-heavy war films, while Casualties of War focused more on morality and psychological trauma. Over time, however, the movie developed a stronger reputation among film fans and critics. Many modern viewers now consider it an overlooked masterpiece of the Vietnam War genre. Online discussions in recent years show audiences continuing to debate the film's themes, performances, and emotional impact. Some viewers even compare it to famous Vietnam War classics and argue that its honesty and emotional intensity make it one of the most unforgettable war movies ever created. A lot of praise continues to go towards Sean Penn's performance because of how frightening and emotionally explosive his character feels throughout the movie. Critics and audiences often describe his acting as brutal, aggressive, and psychologically intense. At the same time, Michael J. Fox received praise for portraying Erickson with emotional vulnerability and fear, making the audience connect deeply with his internal struggle. The contrast between the two performances became one of the movie's defining strengths because both actors represented completely opposite responses to the horrors of war. The film also gained attention for how it challenged the image of American soldiers typically shown in Hollywood war movies. Instead of presenting soldiers as simple heroes, it explored how war can break people emotionally and morally. This approach made the movie uncomfortable for some audiences, but also helped it stand apart from many other films released during the same era. The story constantly asks difficult questions about responsibility, courage, obedience, and guilt. It forces viewers to think about whether remaining silent during evil acts is itself a form of participation. Another reason the film remains memorable is because it feels deeply human despite the horrific events it portrays. Erickson is not shown as a fearless hero. He is terrified, confused, and emotionally overwhelmed for much of the movie. That realism makes the story feel more believable and tragic. The movie focuses heavily on emotional trauma rather than action spectacle, which gives it a very different tone compared to many war films filled with explosions and large battle scenes. Many film fans today also appreciate the directing style of Brian De Palma in the movie. Known for visually stylish thrillers, De Palma used a more grounded and emotional approach here while still maintaining intense cinematic tension. Several scenes are carefully designed to create anxiety and moral discomfort, making audiences feel trapped alongside the characters. The pacing slowly increases pressure until the emotional climax becomes almost unbearable to watch. That ability to create suspense without relying entirely on combat scenes is one reason many critics later reevaluated the film more positively. The movie also highlights the devastating impact war has on innocent civilians. Instead of showing the conflict only from the perspective of soldiers, the story reminds viewers that ordinary people often suffer the most during war. This emotional focus gives the movie a tragic and haunting atmosphere from beginning to end. Even decades later, audiences continue discussing how emotionally difficult certain scenes remain because of the realism and seriousness with which the film handles its subject matter. Despite not becoming a huge commercial hit at release, the film slowly earned respect through home video, television broadcasts, and online film communities. Many younger viewers who discover it today are surprised by how powerful and emotionally heavy it feels compared to modern war movies. Discussions online often describe it as unforgettable, heartbreaking, and emotionally exhausting because of how directly it confronts the darkest side of warfare. Even now, more than 3 decades after its release, Casualties of War continues to be discussed as one of the boldest Vietnam War films ever made. It is not a movie designed to entertain audiences with heroic victories or patriotic speeches. Instead, it explores the moral damage caused by violence and the terrifying reality that war can sometimes bring out the worst parts of human nature. Through powerful performances, haunting music, emotional storytelling, and disturbing realism, the film leaves a